Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Kaylee Haga, and I'm the Director of Communications and Community Relations here at Eastern Carver County Schools. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this high school information session on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for taking some time to learn more about our plans for our high school students. Just a couple of logistical pieces. We are recording this and sharing it on Facebook Live, so it will be available to be viewed after the fact. So if you're talking with people who didn't get a chance to join us today, they can watch this interview and catch up on their own time. We have a lot of questions, as I'm sure you know. We'll get through as many as we can after the presentation today, but know that we are recording all of them, we're reading all of them, and we are trying to update our FAQ and respond to people as quickly as possible. I would again encourage you, if you've got questions, reach out to your building principal, give us a call here at the district, and we'll do everything we can to get you the information you need to make the right choice for you and your family. So with that, I'm going to welcome you again to our information session, and it is my pleasure to introduce our Assistant Superintendent, Erin Rathke, who's going to get us started. Erin.
Thanks, Kaylee. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm excited to share with you and answer your questions and along with our principals. I'm excited that they were able to join us today as well. So I want to start out with how we make decisions and how we will make decisions throughout this school year. Our approach has been collaborative and it has been driven by data. As you can see on this slide, there were multiple perspectives that we've taken into consideration as we've moved through these decisions and as we will move through these decisions throughout the school year. Since last spring, we have done extensive stakeholder feedback with families, teachers, and students. We have individually and as a team gone through the state and local guidelines line by line to ensure that we understand and we are ready to implement what is needed to safely support our learning. We have worked with our local health organizations, pulled apart the data to better understand specifically our community circumstances. The governor's framework has 5 scenarios. Right now, our district falls in the elementary in-person and secondary hybrid model. The data could change from week to week, so it's important that you are looking at an overall number and its trends. This is how we will be considering what model we are in throughout the school year. Right now, at the high school level, we have to plan to be in distance learning and in hybrid as well as in person. In distance learning, students and teachers will follow a block schedule based on periods, with half of the classes meeting each day. Everyone will be assigned in the district an A person or a B person. We are committed to ensuring that families and siblings are the same day. So on Monday and Tuesday, A days, first, third, and fifth hour will meet on Monday, second, fourth, and sixth will meet on Tuesday. It will also include win time, which is what I need, and time for teachers to pull small groups and create lessons that are extensions of learning as well as supports for learning. On Wednesday, the entire district will be in an all students distance learning day. We do have a commitment to move to hybrid as soon as we can. We have a commitment to do that on or before October 8th. As you saw in our board presentation, we acknowledge that every month we will be reporting out the local data, health data, along with we are monitoring it weekly, bi-weekly, and monthly. We're committed to supporting our teachers and our building administrators to move to a hybrid model. Currently, right now, we are supporting sessions for teachers so that they can have professional development on how to build lessons on 2-day-a-week online and 2-day-a-week in person. Our high school principals and their teams are working to provide professional development that is needed for teachers. Credit-bearing classes that are graduation requirements need to be planful, and our teachers need time to develop these classes. In here, you see a sample of Chaska's daily schedule. It's important as we prepare to pivot into distance learning, hybrid, or potentially in person, that we are thoughtful of what kind of daily schedule we are providing for teachers and for students. So this daily schedule is helping us start in distance learning and move to a hybrid model. The health and safety of our students, community, and staff is extremely important to us. We continue to put those values as our priorities when making decisions: health, safety, and education. So some things that you will see when the high school returns to hybrid: staff and students will be in masks. There is an enhancement in our airflow and hand sanitizing stations. School buses will have extra cleaning. We will maintain social distancing as much as possible. The classrooms and bus capacities will be capped at 50%. School age care will be provided for Tier 1 workers. And when we are not in person, there will be meals provided for families and children at home. The Minnesota Department of Education has required us to offer an online learning academy. You have the option to enroll in our online learning academy to have 100% distance learning for the first semester. What that means is, even though our high school is starting in distance learning, they will potentially pivot into a hybrid model. If you enroll in the online academy, it means that you are committed to 100% distance learning for the first semester. We are asking students and families to enroll as soon as possible. We have put a deadline on of tomorrow at 10 a.m. We are going to do enrollment ongoing. However, it is important that we get the initial push of students that for sure want online and learning, so we can ensure that they have quality classes, as well as it will help us with staffing. No matter what platform we are in, no matter what learning model we are in, our learning platform will be Google Classroom. This will help us pivot in and out of models depending on where our state and local data is landing. We will be doing a balance of synchronous and asynchronous lessons. I want to acknowledge that that is really teacher lingo. We will have an opportunity to have live class time with a teacher. I like to call it video conferencing because we want it to be reciprocal. There may be a potential of live streaming. There will be virtual check-ins. There will be opportunities for students to have office hours with teachers, as well as one-on-one time as needed. Each of the classes will be taught by a staff member in District 112. It may not be the teacher at your home school. So if you are a Chaska High School student, you may still in this academy be taught by a Chanhassen High School teacher. And so it is going to be staffed by District 112 teachers. We are committed to building relationships and culture within this online academy. We certainly want to help students stay connected to their home schools. We will do our best to create relationships as well as community within the online classrooms. There will be a daily virtual check-in with students and teachers, and there will be opportunity for academic support to ensure that our students are successful. We are asking for a commitment through January 22nd, which is the end of the semester.
For students that have an individualized education plan in special education, a free and appropriate public education, or FAPE, will be offered and provided no matter what educational model we're in, whether that's in-person, hybrid, or through distance learning. We have dedicated staff that are working hard to ensure that we can provide that quality education no matter what model. Your student will start in the distance learning model, but every IEP team will be meeting to discuss what's called a contingency learning plan, which replaces last year what was called the distance learning plan. So we're going to do a contingency learning plan that covers all three models so that we can easily pivot between whatever model we need to be in. Parent engagement will be an important part of that process in creating that plan, and you will have the opportunity to participate and consent to that contingency learning plan. We do have some special ed specific community engagement sessions. One was this morning. If you weren't able to attend that one, we do have another one tomorrow night at 6:30, and that link can be found on the district website.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee Caring. I'm the Director of Finance and Operations. And just to take it a little further from where Erin was earlier, just want to make sure that you understand that face coverings, as mandated by the governor, will be worn by all staff and students. We will be providing some masks to staff and students, and then we will have some on hand of additional masks in case students lose, forget their mask, or something goes wrong with the mask. Every classroom in the district was evaluated by a third-party testing agency in February of 2020. The Institute for Environmental Assessment measured all classrooms while school was in session with children fully occupying the rooms. This provided an opportunity to look at the relative humidity, the temperature, carbon monoxide, and carbon dioxide levels. The amount of carbon dioxide, or CO2, present in the air is a good indicator of ample fresh air. Some of our newer buildings actually use CO2 levels to control the amount of fresh air that enters the building system. The testing completed in February indicates that the average amount of CO2 in our buildings is far less than the target of 1,200 parts per million, meaning that the airflow in our schools is very good. Hand sanitizer stations will be set up throughout the building related to the cleaning process in our schools. So throughout the day, we will have frequent touch point cleaning in each of the buildings, and they will be sanitized. This will include door handles, handrails, light switches, elevator call buttons, toilet and sink handles, etc. At night, each evening, custodians will take and clean classrooms, service counters, tables and chairs, and commons area, all being disinfected. Where school will be not held for an entire day, for instance on Wednesdays, we will perform a deep clean on all commons areas and classrooms. Cleaning kits will be available in all classrooms. The kit will be made up of a carrying case, gloves, disinfectant, hand sanitizer, paper towels, and the products will be replenished as needed. We will, just like all the other buildings you've been to or grocery stores, signage will be seen throughout our buildings as well, making sure that we are trying to keep the social distancing as best as possible. Additionally, plexiglass barriers will be at both portable and permanent in nature. So in the office area, when you first come in, there will be plexiglass that will be up to protect the students and protect the staff. Next, when we look at our transportation, all of our routes were set up for an all-in classroom scenario that would naturally reduce the passenger loads to meet MDE guidance with the hybrid scenario without causing major changes, confusion, or disruptions. Adjusting standard procedures to control adequate passenger counts to meet Department of Education guidelines includes limiting alternative address requests, not permitting extra riders, and limiting route changes to twice monthly. Routes will be designed to operate in a transit model for each school. Drivers will run the same route every day, no matter what hybrid group goes to school that day. Bus stops and times will remain the same, and it will be understood that there may be days when there is not a rider at a bus stop. Ridership will be monitored regularly with plans to make adjustments where needed at the end of the next scheduled route date. As far as safety cleaning protocols for our buses, all drivers will be required to wear a mask. Drivers will complete a health screening checklist each day before embarking on a route. As a requirement of the Department of Ed, the passenger seat behind the driver will remain empty to maintain approximately 6 feet between driver and passengers. Windows and roof vents will be opened when weather permits to increase fresh air flow. Buses will be cleaned between each run, and they will be cleaned at the end of the day using an electrostatic sprayer and approved chemicals. Students will be encouraged to load the bus from the back to the front during morning routes. There was a need to adjust bell times earlier or later to maximize current route, fleet, and driver supply. Additionally, a change in bell time will provide extra time at schools for staggered loading and unloading procedures, additional parent traffic issues, and cleaning procedures. Students at Eastern Carver County will have multiple ways to access meals this fall, depending on their grade level and learning model choice. On days when your student is learning in their school building, they will visit our kitchens and cafeterias as they have in the previous years, but with extra safety and physical distance measuring in place. So middle school students will have the opportunity to take a 3-day meal kit home on the last day of in-person learning before their 3 days of distance learning intended to be consumed at their distance learning days. Elementary students will have 1-day meals, providing the same opportunity. All students, whether if they're in a 5-day distance learning, will receive a meal kit. Students who choose to attend the Eastern Carver County Online Learning Academy can pick up a 5-day meal kit from your student building. There's also an opportunity to pick up daily meals. These meal kits will be for all K-12 students, and they can be picked up at Chanhassen high schools. There'll be more information about the access to the meals on the district website. Just like all our other areas, food safety and sanitation is a priority, not only previous years, but more importantly this year. So with that, all staff will be wearing masks, gloves, and face shields when the task allows during prep and service of meals. Plexiglass or glass barriers are in place on all serving lines and point of sale to eliminate any exchange of droplets. Student purchases will be contactless at the point of sale. We will continue to use floor markers to keep students 6 feet apart. And then food items will be single serve or served to them to avoid communal serving utensils.
Hi, I'm Tara Cliff, and I'm the Health Services Supervisor for the school district. And so we're asking for family cooperation to help us screen their children for illnesses every day. So we're asking families to take their child's temperature and ask them how they're feeling every day before sending them off to school. And if they're having any symptoms of illness, please keep them at home. Any student who is also experiencing symptoms while at school will be checked by the building nurse and isolated away from others until they're able to be picked up or sent home for high school students. So anyone who has a positive case will be reported to the building nurse at that school. And in collaboration with local public health, a case investigation will be conducted. So based on the information that was received, we'll send out notifications to those who have a close contact with a person who is positive. A school-wide notification won't necessarily be sent in each case unless it affects the entire school, just to those who it is affecting. Anyone with a positive test needs to stay home and isolate for 10 days from the onset of symptoms or from when they were testing if they're asymptomatic. Symptoms need to be improved and they need to be fever-free for 24 hours without medication in order to return. Household contacts will also need to stay home and watch for symptoms for 14 days after their last contact with that household member. Any quarantine or isolation of students, classrooms, schools, or the district as a whole will be determined in collaboration with local public health and the Minnesota Department of Health. Anyone who has symptoms of an illness should stay home or be evaluated by the building nurse if they're already at school. The student will be isolated away from other well students, and we are recommending follow up with their healthcare provider. A case investigation is going to occur and notifications will be determined in collaboration with public health. Again, anyone with symptoms, we're asking them to stay home and isolate for 10 days. and they can return after 10 days with the improvement of symptoms and fever-free for 24 hours. Contacts of a positive or symptomatic case will be evaluated by the building nurse. Anyone deemed a contact should stay home for 14 days from the last contact day to watch for symptoms. So that's different than those who are symptomatic or positive. They need to isolate from others for 10 days. If you're exposed to somebody, then you have to stay home for 14 days to watch for symptoms, because symptoms can come anywhere from 2 to 14 days after exposure. And if symptoms develop or they test positive, then we will switch to that guidance for positive cases. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara. We know that numbers will be changing, and balancing stability, health, and safety are critically important to our decision making. We have the potential of transitioning in between all three models: distance learning, in-person learning, and hybrid learning. We will monitor health data and other concerns and reevaluate our model on a monthly basis. We are committed to communicating to families as soon as possible and giving them as much information as we can as early as possible. There may be an exception that if there is a quarantine that is necessary in the event of a positive case, staff and parents will be notified, and we may have to shift our learning model. We know that we may have to shift classrooms, grade levels, schools, and the district. And so there is a quarantine potential in each of those levels and layers. And we will communicate. Those may be in a 24-hour turnaround, but if the whole district would shift models, we will give as much notice as we possibly can for parents to have accommodations necessary to be able to do that. It's really important that we have all of our community supporting us. Moving the dial forward to full in-person learning is going to require us a full community effort. Public health data needs to continue to move in the right direction. We need help from all of our communities, whether you live in Carver, Chanhassen, Chaska, or Victoria. We need everyone to help follow the MDH and CDC guidelines. We need everyone wearing their masks, practicing social distancing, practicing good hand hygiene and hand washing to help us all reduce the risks of exposure. We know that the best place for our students is in school with their teachers. We're all in this together, and we know that we're stronger together. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for that great presentation. Number of questions coming in. A reminder to folks that you can ask questions in the chat if you've got anything on your mind based on that presentation. We'll get to as many as we can in the next half hour or so. This first question, I'm going to put this out to either Doug or Jim. And for those of you who don't know, Doug Bollinger is our new principal at Chanhassen High School. We're excited to have him with us. And while Jim Bach is not new, we are still excited to have Jim with us as well. As a parent of an incoming freshman, this is a question that's near and dear to my heart. Our freshman students did not get into the buildings at the end of last year to kind of get that sneak peek at their high school. What are we doing to support our ninth graders? Are we going to have an orientation? How are we helping support them in this really important transition? And I will, whichever one of you wants to take that, go ahead.
I can take that, Doug. We're working on a couple of different plans. One of them is, first, we're going to do our normal link crew orientation at Chaska High School. We're going to do, that will be on September 2nd, where we're going to do a Google Meets. Our link crew leaders will invite kids into a Google Meets. We'll break them down into about 10 groups, and we'll have that meeting to let the kids answer any questions of upperclassmen. We're also now working on a plan to possibly bring kids into small groups on September 2nd, but we're still looking to see how we can do that safely, let kids walk their schedule and take a look at the buildings.
Thanks, Jim. Doug or Tara Keltzis, who's our IAA principal, anything that you guys want to add to that?
let me unmute here. Just we'll continue to focus on our transition students because that is such an important time and important year, such a important moment for kids. That week, the September 2nd, yeah, same things happening at Chanhassen High School as far as link crew, as far as bringing students in. We've got a couple hours that night. We are going to pare back some of the activities just to mitigate any transmission possibilities. So we'll still have students come in though, walk around the school, see what they can, so they feel comfortable if and when we do transition into, I should say when we transition into hybrid mode, so that doesn't feel like a shock to their system.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Tara, anything from your perspective?
Yes, we partner our new and transition students that first week we're in school. So we won't be bringing kids in the week of the 2nd, but that first week we're in school, we'll partner with our new students with an upper class student and make sure that they can shadow and understand our process and how everything works here at IAA.
Awesome, thank you. And will we still have school pictures, everybody?
We are working on that right now, actually, yes. We are setting up, probably as we speak, the time for when students will come in through LifeTouch. It'll be a couple of days next week. We'll have information going out probably very soon, actually, in the next 24 to 48 hours, assigning on a per alpha. So a family can come in and get their students' pictures taken at that time.
All right, thank you. Aaron, I'm gonna bring you back up on camera. Let you grab your water. So one of the consistent questions that we get, we have a lot of people that really want their children to come back in person in some method, hybrid or not. And you had talked about there being some flexibility with the Online Learning Academy. So if somebody really wants to try it and finds out that it's just in person is too much, can you confirm that they do in fact have the ability to enroll later?
Yes, thank you for that question. We certainly are asking for people to make a commitment as soon as possible. That will help us with staffing and to understand the potential numbers that we have of enrollment. However, we do not want to say no to families. We know that this is challenging times, that things are changing all the time for our kids, for our families, what's happening personally. And so we want to give people the opportunity to enroll ongoing. And so if you do try it and decide you're scared, you're nervous, you don't like it, you can enroll late, yes.
Are Wednesdays really just a day off, Erin?
No, thank you for that question. I do think that is a question that many people have. No, it is a all distance learning day for an entire district. And so let me talk a little bit about why we're doing that. So even at the elementary level where we're pulling kids in person, we are still having that Wednesday all distance learning day because we want kids to be able to have the skills necessary to be able to transition into a different model if we need to, because we know the potential is there. And so we want kids to understand the nuances of what might be happening when they're at home if that was to happen. Same thing at the high school level and the middle school level, we're doing the same thing. And what that gives us an opportunity to do is to do some deep cleaning without as many people in the building. There will be potential for small groups as teachers need. We also are providing some teacher planning time and collaboration time. I want to acknowledge that a hybrid model is a new model for our teachers, just like distance learning was in the spring. And so providing them the collaboration time and the planning time, ensure they can have quality lessons and do the asynchronous and synchronous teaching is really important. But most importantly, on behalf of students in our community, that deep clean is going to be really important in the middle of the week. Although Dee Dee and her team are doing a great job, there was going to be great cleaning every day and every night, but not having as many people in the building is certainly a benefit for our engineers and our custodial staff.
Great. And can you talk a little bit about, we talked about how distance learning in the spring is going to be different than distance learning this fall. Can you give some specifics about when we say that, what we mean?
That is a popular question across the country right now. And it is hard for our families. They really want it to go better than it did in the spring, and our teachers do too. It was really a challenging time, and I'm not calling that distance learning. I call that crisis teaching. That is, in 2 weeks, we said, teachers, take all your curriculum, get it online. Sorry, Google Meet may not exactly be at the level it needs to be for this to happen with high quality interactions with students, but hey, good luck. And so we certainly know that there were things that could have gone better, although I think our teachers were innovative and did it on a dime. What we are striving for this fall is teachers have learned. We've taken feedback from families and from students. We've had a lot more planning time. We are providing strong professional development for our teachers. And you know what? We're going to do the best we can. I had one of my colleagues say to me, it's kind of like a program, an app on Apple, right? It's an app on your phone. And sometimes they have to update it because there's a bug in it. That's what we're going to be doing all of the time, right? We're going to keep going forward, learn from our mistakes, clean it up, fix it, do it better. And so I certainly know that our distance learning 2.0 is going to be more effective just because our teachers have had more time to be thoughtful. Our building administrators are ready to support them, as well as our teaching and learning team has been providing professional development for teachers all summer to ensure that they have the skills necessary to have a high quality online instruction.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep asking you some questions. Grading and assessment. Students had the option, assessments were a little different in the spring, and certainly from a grading perspective, they had the option to do the pass-fail piece. Can you talk about what assessments and grading is going to look like this fall?
We are going to move forward with grading and assessments as previously done. Some things may be different depending on what model we're in, and so there is options for online testing that we're looking into to provide for students who are at home full-time. But we will not be holding, it is not going to be like the spring where we held kids harmless to what was going on in the trauma and just the transition and the peer learning curve we were all on. We will be moving forward with grades and assessments. They may look different just because we may be in different learning models, but we will move forward with assessments, tests. It'll just take some time to figure out the planning and the rhythm of a block schedule and possibly being in person for 2 days and being at home for 2 days. So there will be some differences, but it will be more like it was before all of this happened.
Thank you. Another one for you. When we think about the difficulty of wearing masks and keeping masks on, I think we tend to focus more on our youngest learners. But as a parent of a middle schooler and a high schooler now, I can tell you that they never seem to keep track of anything. What are we doing to support our students? What are their requirements around the masks? What will the consequences be, if any, if they don't wear masks?
Most of my career was at the high school level, and so sometimes they're more challenging than the little ones in some ways. Independence and dependence all happening at the same time, so I can really respect that. We certainly want to support. The governor has a mandate, and it was very clear that K-12 was the expectation that they would be wearing masks. And certainly when we think of our values of health, safety, and education, that is part of it. And so I do want to really accentuate that masks are going to be important, and we're going to have to do it. We certainly don't want to create a new discipline issue, like now we're getting into battling with students. That's not what any of us want to do and how we want to spend our time. And so masks will be required. We're going to teach and reteach. We're going to remind. We'll have extra ones for students if something happens. I forgot it. Sorry, I left it at home. I forgot it on the bus, whatever that challenge may be. And so we will have extras, but we're going to really expect our high school students to model for our younger learners that this is what we do to keep our community. And I want to just acknowledge our teachers are going to be in front of a lot of bodies every day. And so there's one of them and many students. And so we want to keep our teachers safe and each other safe. And so being masked and practicing social distancing and washing hands is going to be really important. And so we are asking parents to just help us set that tone. I know I have a middle schooler too. So we're having lots of conversations like, this isn't a joke, you need to keep your mask on. And we've taught him how to take it on and off and how it's safe and stop touching your nose and your eyes and your mouth, and so we're teaching those things and trying to be in partnership with the schools that he goes to, so that he knows what we expect is the same as what's going to be expected at school. So we just need our families to support us in this, but it is an expectation. And we do need our students to do that.
Thanks, Erin. We'll let you take a water break. Tara, Cliff, can you get up on deck, please? Hey Tara, so if a student takes a COVID test and tests negative, are they still required to stay out for 14 days or can they come back to school after that negative test?
That is a great question. I have had many conversations with public health about this, and the guidance is still that they should remain out for the entire time. There has been some false negatives. It's just a moment in time. It could be that the viral load in their respiratory system hasn't gotten to the point where it's detectable on a test. But if they have symptoms of COVID, then they need to be out for 10 days if they're having symptoms, or 14 days if they're watching. Maybe that'll change in the future because guidance is always changing when we're dealing with COVID, and we're always learning more. But at this time, yes, even with a negative test, students need to remain out.
And for our students who may have some other medical issues that can mimic COVID symptoms, and or if they have a different diagnosis that's got some of those same symptoms, how would they let you know that so that they can be in school if they're not contagious and they're not at risk of infecting anybody else?
Yeah, exactly. That's the tricky part of COVID, because it does look like the common cold, and it does look like influenza, and it does look like allergies, and it's really hard to tell, what might be one or the other. So we're asking that, if it appears to be COVID, that we're going to kind of walk down that track and start with the isolation and quarantine at that point. If you happen to go to your doctor and you have an alternate diagnosis, so let's say, for instance, you have a sore throat and a fever. So we would exclude you from school based on those symptoms, which are consistent with COVID, but they're also consistent with strep throat. So if you go to the doctor and you get a strep diagnosis, then we would have that doctor's note that says they have strep. We would keep you out for the appropriate amount of time for strep, and then you would be allowed back in sooner than that COVID. So in the absence of any other diagnosis, we would assume it's COVID and you would have to be out the entire time.
One more question for you. And this is the one that's tricky, right? The notification piece. If a student tests positive, or a staff member, who determines who's notified? And will parents have access to sort of school level data or district level data about positive cases?
That's a great question. So of course, with data privacy, we have to be careful on who is notified and when. So if your child is determined to be a close contact of a positive case, then definitely you will be notified. If it was just that there's a case in the school, likely there won't be any notification to parents, just for that data privacy piece. We do work with Carver County Public Health, and they help determine that case investigation. So we'll be asking lots of questions. We partner with public health, and they will be asking lots of questions. And so we'll determine who's the close contact, who needs to be notified, and we will go from there. So it depends, which nobody likes that answer. Unfortunately, things aren't black and white, but we will do our best to notify everybody who needs to know. And then we're not going to make these broad statements saying, especially in our smaller schools, 5 kids are positive, because then you could, essentially do some investigation and figure out who those 5 kids are. And we really need to honor our students' privacy. And so we might look at district level data, we might look at grade or level data, so our elementary or our middle or our high. We could potentially do that depending on what the case count is, but as a district, for sure, we could do that.
All right. Thanks, Tara. Erin, I'm going to bring you back up. That was a short-lived water break.
No problem.
So I have a couple questions on, so if somebody wants to, either in the hybrid model or in the online learning academy, we don't have kids in the building every day, all the time. How will that impact their access to athletics and extracurriculars? Will we still be supporting their ability to participate? We know that not just athletics, but extracurriculars is really important to a lot of our students.
Yes, I just want to share that we have a commitment to a holistic experience for our students, and was really the challenge of spring, right? Was that our students were at home. Our concern around their mental health, their social development is certainly something that we're thinking about. We do follow the Minnesota State High School League rules when it comes to activities and athletics. As you know, Minnesota State High School League has changed some of our seasons around based on if it was a high exposure, medium exposure, lower exposure labeled sport. So we know football has changed to the spring. We kind of have this, we were calling it like a skinny season, and then things have moved to the summer, more into a late summer season. If you are in the online learning academy, you can still participate in athletics. And we do just truthfully know that some of our athletes are choosing that so that they can stay safe and be able to play. Activities are going to be activity focused. Online academy students, if we're in a hybrid model, we're still going to provide access to as many activities as we possibly can. Some of them have gone virtual, and the opportunity to be virtual is there. And so our athletic and activities directors are sharing communication. Things are starting. Fall season is starting August 17th, which was yesterday. And so you're probably seeing kids out practicing and with their coaches. And so things are starting. So make sure you check the websites and know what you can sign up for. But there will be opportunities for people to participate as safe as possible based on the MDH Minnesota State High School League rules that are put in front of us.
Great, thank you. A couple more questions for you. So I know in the spring, sort of those state standardized testings and exams, we let go of a lot of that. And I'm not talking about the district testing so much as the state testing. I'm not sure if MDE has communicated anything about plans for this year yet. Can you confirm that, or?
We have not seen any communication about that yet. However, I will say this, until we hear it's not happening, we're going to make an assumption that it is happening. And that is, it's important data. It's not the only data, but it is important data. And I think that our teachers and our students and our parents want to know those results and have those things happen as long as it can be done safely. ACT is back up and running. They're with some parameters, how many people can test in one space. There are some health things we have to consider. We have to be able to social distance. And so there's things happening around testing, but that standardized test, we have not heard that it is not happening. So we'll make the assumption that it is until we hear something different.
Great, thanks. So here's a tough question, because I think, and this is one of those where I think maybe it's just important for parents to know that we're working really hard on it, but we don't have all the answers worked out yet. I am a band geek still. You tease me about this regularly. And the fine arts are really important to my family. How are we going to support our music families and our art families and those other sort of, we call them specials at the elementary level. That's not what they are at the high school level, but what is the plan to support that learning?
So currently right now, my team and I are meeting in work groups with those specific teachers that you're speaking of, because each of them bring a whole different challenge to this situation. So let's start with physical education. We're gonna follow the model that we're in. So for example, when the high school moves to a hybrid model, I was working with Tara and Dee Dee to ensure that we have the right standards in front of us. So what kinds of equipment can be shared? How are we going to play specific things? How will teachers have to adjust their units? How can we ensure that people are able to social distance but still participate? What's the length of time kids can be together? When should they remove their mask and when should they keep their masks on? So we're working with teachers to ensure that we all have an understanding of those guidelines. Same thing with band, choir, music, orchestra. I got a very important music vocabulary over the last handful of weeks with our teachers. We're working on masks that have slits in them for the band department. I want to acknowledge they are extremely expensive. And so we are strategizing how to do that for students. And so they are a mask that will have a slit that they can use with their musical instruments, as well as bell covers. And so that will cover instruments, so the air blowing into the space It will mitigate some of that. And so our music, I just want to acknowledge our music department. They're the content experts, not me. They've done a significant amount of learning and research over the summer to ensure that they could be safe. And the Metro Leadership Group has been working on that because they want to provide stuff for students. It's really important to our families and to our kiddos that we're providing those things that are very important to them in their school experience. Same thing with art. Each art class brings a different challenge. So general art may be different than making jewelry, may be different than ceramics. And then how do we to teach ceramics, one of the art teachers was sharing with me, it's really important that I might need to move their hands for them on the clay to ensure that they're getting the full experience. And then how do we do that? So Tara Cliff, our COVID expert, has been amazing and very thoughtful in ensuring that we understand what we can do. We also know that touching the same pen is maybe not what we want, but we know that that's a low rate of exposure. We know that being in masks, social distancing, and hand washing is a way for us to mitigate that, and that we're going to do the best that we can. But each of those specialists that you're talking about bring a new challenge. Choir is another one we have to really be thoughtful of, because when you are pushing hard and projecting your voice out into the space, that's a lot of droplets. And so we are going to have kids sing with masks. And if for whatever reason they did remove masks, we would expect that they would probably be outside and at least 12 feet apart. So we're working on those things within the Minnesota Department of Education and Minnesota Department of Health guidelines. And then of course with Tara's expertise to ensure that we're giving teachers as much information as we can, students and families regarding those pieces.
Great. And so a similar question, labs. I think one of the differences, even in the state guidance around distance learning, if we have to pivot to distance learning, I know we're starting for that in the short term in the high school with the intention of moving pretty quickly to a hybrid model, but we know that we may have to pivot into a distance learning model at any of our buildings for whatever reason. My understanding is that under the guidance, we can accommodate some small group work, lab work. People can come in and wood shop, that kind of thing. If they need to do projects, they're going to have the ability to do that even in a distance learning format. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I want to acknowledge there's two kinds of distance learning. There's voluntary distance learning, and then there's mandatory distance learning. If for whatever reason our district would move to a mandatory distance learning, we would probably not have anybody in the building. And likely our teachers would be home in place. Shelter in place, that's the word I was looking for. We are in a voluntary distance learning model right now. And so we are committed, and our building administrators are committed to being creative on how can we pull students in for classes that are difficult to do online, small group supports, students with specialized services, students who speak a second language, or our ELL students. There are classes that are really important that we have some time in front of each other. Our world language classes, certainly ones with high levels of material. And so they're working really hard to be creative on how we can get students in small groups to ensure that they're getting the support and the experience that they need. It may not happen the first week, but they're working on it. I was just reviewing Chaska's plan, and their assistant principal has a really stellar plan laid out and is excited about getting kids in the building. Our teachers want to be with students. They just really want to do it safely. And they want students not only for themselves, but for our students. And it's really important that we're thoughtful at this level on how we do that.
Great. Thanks. Okay, I have a scheduling question that I think I'm going to ask. Well, it could be either Jim or Doug. I'm actually going to go back to the block schedule. So if you guys can, one or two of you, on my screen. Maybe, I don't know if it shows up or not on yours, but so can we walk through what the schedule actually looks like for our high school students? And I know that this model is the same, and Doug, I appreciate that you're on camera. It's got the Hawk logo on it, so no offense to you. But can we walk through what this actually will look like for a student?
We sure can. And Jim, I can jump in if you want to chime in where you'd like, but we've got the goal with this was to be able to pivot back and forth between distance and hybrid, and not have a lot of variables for students and for families. So we've got the same classes happening on Mondays and Tuesdays, same classes happening on Thursdays and Fridays as well. So we've got, but within each one of those, if you were to zoom in and look at one of the blocks, so example, first block on Monday, you've got about an hour and a half there. And what's different, I think this is a key thing to underscore, what's different this spring or this summer, sorry, this fall, compared to what we did in the spring is that there's a lot more structure that we're outlining within our classes. So all students are going to meet in a synchronous manner, which again is education needs, but everybody together at the same time to kind of just do a check-in and then a lesson and then kind of targeted support for students. So everybody's in the same, whether it is hybrid or distance learning. Some students might be face-to-face and some students might be kind of joining by Google Meet. But after the lesson takes place for everybody, then the teacher can work with individual students or with groups of students to iron out whatever questions they still have. And then what we also notice is that after that 90 minutes or so of lesson, we've also got WIN tagged right after that, right immediately after that. So the idea there is that WIN, which stands for what I need. So it's additional support for students for the course or the class that they just finished. So if I'm still in, my first block class is algebra and I'm still having some algebra questions, I can stick around for some algebra WIN. And if I'm a student in some other class and I would like to also get some algebra help, I can jump into that even though I didn't have that first block. So maybe that's getting a little bit into the weeds there, but that's the idea with each one of the class sessions. I don't know, Jim, if there's anything you would add to that.
No, you did a great job. And this is in response to the feedback we got from parents, students, and staff last year about the structures and having 6 or 7 classes at a time. So that's why we came up with the 3 period block per day. And then putting WIN into each block really allows us to target and provide more one-on-one coaching for kids as needed.
Awesome.
And also just talk really quickly about the Wednesday. So Wednesdays is probably looking actually like we'll do like teacher PLC time in the morning and then have our WIN sessions in the afternoon. Because we've, based on our experience in the spring, I think this is across all districts, in all households probably, it's just hard sometimes to get kids up and moving at 7:45. So we would have targeted WIN sessions on the afternoons of Wednesdays. We still have asynchronous learning, so still have assignments and things that teachers are assigning for students to do on Wednesdays, but they can also kind of ping particular kids or call particular kids into Google Meet sessions for really specific one-on-one support, not just academic, but also social emotional support on Wednesday afternoons.
Awesome. Thank you. And then the $1 million question, of course, and I know you guys have been working so hard 24/7 to get these out the door, but of course, everybody wants to know when their students are going to see their schedules. Do you have a ballpark? I know I hate even asking it because I can see the bags under your eyes.
You're breaking up. I can't hear you. Sorry, Kaylee.
I know this has been something you've been working really hard on. So any estimate on when parents and students might hear?
Before we jump in with a date, I just want to
provide some context. Absolutely.
Some context just up to how difficult it is. And I appreciate the patience and the flexibility of all of our families. What's the wrench in all of it, I think at the high school level, is the licensure piece. So we don't have, as Jim and I have called them, like utility players where we can move this teacher from this group to this group to this group. Even within science, you've got chemistry licensure, physics licensure, biology licensure. We really need to be thoughtful about how to make sure that licensed teachers are teaching the content to our students. We've got students who are opting for full-time distance learning, and we have some teachers who need accommodations. So we're trying to piece together the puzzle, and it is giant. And I'm really glad to have 2 amazing schedulers, neither of which are me, at the high school level, in Erin Swoboda and Kathy Fontes. They're doing amazing work and coming up with different iterations, different ways to make this happen. But this is really the thing that's slowing us down the most. And with that, we are hoping, Jim, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think we're still planning on the 25th to be a date that we share.
Yes, that is our goal as of right now.
Which is also when parents should hear if they're an A or a B day, right?
Correct.
Great. Well, I appreciate it. I know you guys are working really hard, and that's certainly good information for parents to have. I guess the last question is for the 2 of you and Tara, and I just think it's a great question to end on. How can parents support you in helping their students prepare, and what can they do to provide support to the schools as we get ready to kick off the fall. We know it's going to start off maybe in a distance model, but we also know we've got plans in place to switch pretty quickly to hybrid so you can get kids back in the building. What can they do to support their students and you in getting ready?
It's a great question. I think, you know, one, getting them ready to get up and go to school every day. That, you know, last spring, there were some challenges where kids weren't connecting until later in the day, but letting them know that, hey, we're going to start at 7:45. We need you up and going. The mask thing too is going to be critical to make sure that they know they have to wear the masks when they're in the school. So those are probably two really big things, and getting them ready to learn, especially if we're going back and forth, asking them what they need. You know, if the kids are struggling, if they understand when a child is struggling, you know, ask them what they think they need. Are they talking to students? Also reaching out to our counselors. We've got a good network of people working with the social emotional needs, to reach out to them, to, you know, have them connect with the child too. So those are just a few things. I don't know, Doug, or Tara, if you guys have anything else.
I would echo that. Just as much support as we can get on the home front, because it is a partnership for sure, around like, here's how we are going to do school safely when we are face to face. Here's what school is going to look like, whether we're in distance learning or hybrid. We do need students to you know, find their space, get in their rhythm of what time of day they're going to be working on such and such class. How are they going to communicate with teachers? Help them on the technology side of things, and then let us know where are the gaps. Like if there are some technology issues or access issues or what have you, let us know, so that we can help out. And I think just continued patience and from families about just how entrusted that we are, working really long days trying to solve this problem.
Tara, anything to add?
I would just echo the partnership right now with just how things change all the time and change daily. Just continue to reach out if you have questions, or if your student needs anything, or if there's anything specific we can do to help with this transition. Please reach out, because it's a partnership and it changes all the time. So
Great, thank you. Erin, any last words for our parents who are watching, or our students? Hey, there certainly could be students on this info session.
I'm having an unmuting problem. I just want to thank all of our families for joining us today. We know that there have been lots of questions, particularly at the high school level. We know we have students that are really sad about not starting in person and being able to be in the buildings. I just want to assure people that we're working really hard. We're really trying to be thoughtful about health, safety, and education. Our building administrators and their teams are working extremely hard to follow the guidelines and ensure that all the logistics we're able to follow. And we also want to provide a really great product for our families. And so I just really appreciate your patience. And I'm looking so forward to meeting everybody in person. And I know these teachers and these administrators are extremely excited to see kiddos back in buildings. It's hard to be in school and be a school person without kids. And so it's been really hard on all of us also, because that's why we're here, and that is the service that we provide. And so it's been very challenging for all of us as well. And so I just really appreciate everyone's support. I'm really excited about being in Eastern Carver County and being your new assistant superintendent. And I will speak on behalf of Superintendent Sales Adams, who is not able to be here with us today. She is also very excited about being here, and we're extremely excited about our partnership to support our schools, our administrators, our community, and our students. So thank you.
Thank you, Erin. I want to thank all of our principals and our district administrators for joining us today. I want to thank all of you for joining us today and putting your trust in us. I promise that we are working really hard to do everything we can to have a successful start of the school year and a successful 2021. If I did not get to your question, I apologize. Please feel free to reach out to the district or your building principal. They're great resources, have lots of specific information, especially if you have kind of highly specialized questions. They can get you the answers sooner rather than later. So thank you again. Wish you an enjoyable rest of your Tuesday. And you know where to find us if you've got questions. Thanks for joining us, everybody.